map, and his £5 million gift has propped up its leader, Nigel Farage.
And I cannot even tell you how grateful I am to Christopher Harborne.
But Channel 4 News has seen evidence that the billionaire financier has played Britain's electoral system.
Christopher Harborne isn't a household name, but according to this Channel 4 News investigation, he's become one of the most influential financial backers in modern British politics. The report doesn't allege that he broke the law. Instead, it examines whether the UK's electoral rules allow someone living overseas to continue wielding significant political influence through legal loopholes. Let's see what Channel 4 uncovered.
On the one hand, declaring Thailand his home, but on the other, also declaring residency at times in Hampshire. And why? Well, to continue voting, particularly in the Brexit referendum, but also to continue to donate to Nigel Farage, to the Brexit Party, and also to Reform, all via a British electoral system that's riddled with loopholes that he's taken full advantage of.
British public can look at something and see that it is entirely legal, but that it just doesn't smell right.
The investigation frames this as a question about the rules themselves. If someone complies with the law, but the outcome still troubles many people, should the law be changed? That's the central issue Channel 4 sets out to explore.
Picturesque countryside of Hampshire. Mr. Harborne lived in a substantial property in the tiny village of Highclere in the 1990s. But at some time around the end of that decade, he relocated to Thailand, where the businessman made a fortune selling aviation fuel before moving into the opaque world of cryptocurrency. And British politics. He's since pumped over £33 million into the system, nearly £2 million to the Conservatives, £10 million to the Brexit Party, that controversial £5 million to Nigel Farage, and a whopping £15 million to Reform.
Channel 4 reports that Harborne has donated tens of millions of pounds over the years, making him one of the country's biggest political donors. That level of influence naturally raises questions about how political funding rules operate and whether they're keeping pace with today's realities.
You might think the influential mega-donor would appear publicly, but he rarely does. This is Nigel Farage in 2019, fresh from being attacked with a milkshake. Following behind that day, the man with the chequebook, Christopher Harborne. And here he is relaxing on the island of Koh Samui in Thailand, where he also owns a health spa. Yet despite becoming a Thai citizen in 2011 and assuming a Thai name, Mr. Harborne's continued to exert huge influence over the right wing of British politics from afar.
What do we want? When do we want?
So how is that possible?
Up to this point, the investigation has established who Christopher Harborne is and why his donations matter. Next, Channel 4 turns to the residency rules that, according to its reporting, are at the heart of the controversy.
Well, donating from Thailand was legal because Mr. Harborne registered as an overseas elector when he left the UK, which under the law at the time meant he could vote and make political donations in the UK for the next 15 years. But those rights then expired, we believe, around 2013, and Mr. Harborne gave no registered donations for several years. But Channel 4 News understands that the billionaire financier came back onto the UK electoral roll in 2016 in Hampshire, specifically to vote in the Brexit referendum. Now, according to the rules, he could only do that by declaring, indeed, that he was a resident in Hampshire.
This is where the investigation shifts from Harborne's donations to the legal framework behind them. According to Channel 4, the key question is how the residency and overseas voter rules operated in his case.
But we've discovered that by October of that year, in other words, just a couple of months after the Brexit vote, that he declared in a company filing that he was, in fact, a resident in Thailand. This is the document that Mr. Harborne filed with Companies House relating to his airline fuel company AML Global and dated October 2016. At the end of the filing, he's prompted to state the country where he's usually resident, and he answers Thailand. In other words, Mr. Harborne seemingly only came back to the UK in the summer of 2016 for a very short time to register as a UK resident, to vote for Brexit, and crucially, to set the clock ticking again, giving him another 15 years as an overseas voter
The report points to company records and electoral registration documents from 2016. Channel 4 argues these records raise questions about how residency is determined under existing electoral law.
To continue to donate to political parties here in Britain from his home in Thailand. And that's precisely what he did.
The problem in this case is that we see someone working in a system that is incredibly permissive, in a system which has gaping loopholes, so they are not breaking the law. But the British public, I think in this case, as in a lot of the cases that we're seeing at the moment with reforms finances, are just looking at it and saying, this doesn't smell right, this isn't quite right.
Will he set out what concrete steps he is taking to crack down on foreign interference in British politics?
It's because of the flow of foreign money into UK politics that Labour's decided to crack down, proposing a cap of £100,000 on donations from overseas.
Notice what the expert says here. The criticism isn't that the law was necessarily broken. It's that the current rules may be too permissive, allowing outcomes that many people find difficult to reconcile with the purpose of the system.
I can tell the House we will act decisively to protect our democracy.
But in a rare interview, Mr Harborne told The Telegraph the restrictions only made him want to donate more, adding, where there's a will, there's a way. Of course, one way to circumvent the new restrictions on overseas donors is to move back to the UK, which is what Mr Harborne has seemingly chosen to do, to move back to Hampshire, where Channel 4 News has seen the council records that show the billionaire last month switched his electoral registration from overseas to a UK residency in this tiny village. So is he playing the system again, or does Christopher Harborne actually live here? Well, we came to try and find out.
The investigation now moves from documents to on-the-ground reporting. Instead of relying only on paperwork, Channel 4 heads to the Hampshire village linked to Harborne's registration to see what local residents have to say.
So this is the centre of the village where Christopher Harborne is registered as an elector, and the house that he's registered at is just up the road there, but really there's nothing else going on here. There are no shops. There is literally the one little pub that you can see there behind me. So we went there to try and talk to locals to see if they knew him, and many made the point that this place is so tiny that everybody knows everyone else and everyone knows everyone's business, and yet those that we spoke to said that they had never seen Christopher Harborne, and some of them said that they hadn't even heard of him. Is it possible, do you think, to be here and not be recognised? Can you hide in a tiny village like this?
No. You can't.
What do you mean?
Well, everybody knows everybody here. You've been in the pub. Nobody's seen him. You can have a property, own property. You can put your electorate on it, but it doesn't mean to say you need to live there.
This is one of the investigation's most visual moments. Rather than relying only on official records, Channel 4 speaks directly with local residents to understand whether Harborne is known in the community where he's registered.
Do you know Christopher Harborne?
I have heard of him, yeah.
You have heard of him. Have you heard of him because he is registered here, he lives here up the road?
I've heard basically from the news and stuff, but I did not even realise that he was in the area.
Yeah. So would you know him if you saw him, though?
I've seen pictures and stuff online, so I'd probably recognise him, yeah.
You're right. And have you seen him in the pub? We're down here at the local pub. You're a local. Have you seen him?
I haven't seen him around at all, no.
And do people chat about him having just moved back and being here?
This is the first time I'm hearing of it, to be honest. It's quite a random area, so no.
Yeah. Is it possible to be here and not be known, not be heard of, not be seen?
Yeah, of course, yeah, but at the same time, it's such a kind of a small community. Someone would have heard something, you'd think.
Interviews with local residents don't determine someone's legal residency. However, Channel 4 presents these conversations as part of the broader context behind the questions it raises about the registration process.
The tricky thing is there is no formal test of residency for electoral purposes. It's beholden on local officials at the council to check that you do live where you say you live. But it is illegal to declare that you are a resident somewhere if you actually are not. So we asked the local council, what checks did they make to verify that Christopher Harborne does live in this tiny village? It's so small, it can't be that hard to check. Can it? The council told us they couldn't comment on individual cases, but said for any person registering, the applicant makes a declaration that they are resident at the property. And when making the application, they are warned it is an offence to knowingly provide false information and could face a fine or prison. This matters because the Electoral Commission, which governs elections in the UK, relies on local councils to make these checks and certify people as legitimate voters and therefore permissible donors.
Channel 4 leaves viewers with a question rather than a definitive conclusion. According to the investigation, the central issue is whether the UK's electoral rules are robust enough to deal with people whose lives span multiple countries while still allowing them to make substantial political donations. The report also notes that Christopher Harborne's lawyers say he has complied with all applicable laws regarding his residency status, and no finding of wrongdoing is presented. At the same time, critics interviewed in the report argue that the law itself may need to be tightened to remove uncertainty and strengthen public confidence in the political funding system. Whether Parliament ultimately changes those rules remains to be seen, but this investigation has already reignited a wider debate about transparency, electoral law, and the influence of major donors in British politics. What do you think? Does this investigation expose weaknesses in the current rules, or does it simply show that the law is working as written? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more in-depth analysis of the biggest stories shaping UK politics.